This week on Christian World News, Iranian schoolgirls targeted with poison gas. While the government blames others, critics of the regime say it's retaliation for nationwide protests by women. Plus, one-on-one with Beth Moore, from childhood abuse to her husband's struggle with mental illness. The acclaimed author and Bible teacher shares some of her deepest secrets. And a hero of the Holocaust, she and her family saved hundreds of Jews from the gas chambers. The latest book about Corrie ten Boom tells the story in a whole new way. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. There is growing anger in Iran following a series of toxic chemical attacks against schoolgirls. Hundreds of students in many cities have been poisoned by mysterious gas. As Chris Mitchell reports, schools for girls are being targeted.
On Tuesday, Iran announced the arrest of several unnamed suspects over the poisonings.
Based off intelligence work and research done by the country's intelligence bodies, authorities have identified and arrested some individuals in 5 provinces and are currently carrying out a full investigation.
The news follows reports that those experiencing symptoms have grown dramatically across hundreds of schools throughout Iran. The attacks began in late November in Qom, near the capital Tehran. While most of the targets are girls' schools, Reuters notes at least one boys' school in western Iran was also hit. Some local media reports students saying they saw strange objects landing in schoolyards. Eyewitnesses add loud bangs being heard.
اولش صدای یه انفجار اومد بعدش مدیر مدرسه از بلندگو اعلام کرد که حال بچه‌ها اینجوری شد و آمبولانس اومد.
For months, school authorities, the health ministry, and other government bodies either denied or downplayed the incidents. In the Supreme Leader's first public statement on the poisonings, Ali Khamenei said the culprits would receive the most severe penalty.
Officials must pursue this seriously. It's an important matter. If there's some hands behind this and some persons or groups are involved, this is a big and unforgivable crime.
Those opposing the regime call the attacks a revenge tactic against young Iranian women leading the revolutionary movement that erupted across Iran in September. Last year, Khamenei demanded punishment for those involved in the uprising. Farouk Kanani, a civil activist, tells CBN News that could be the motive for these attacks.
Punishment for the teenagers would be nice because they get aware of what they are doing. That's probably a so-called fatwa for many Islamists to follow that. And now it's, as I mentioned, kind of taking a revenge from the teenagers, especially schoolgirls.
While several officials have tried to blame foreign enemies for the attacks, families of students gathered in one Tehran school chanting, "Death to the child-killing regime." Widespread footage from social media shows a concerned mother being brutally attacked by plainclothes forces for demanding answers about her poisoned daughter. Other parents demanded to know why school security cameras were off when the poison gas spread. While the perpetrator's intent remains unclear, many believe it is the payback for the young women fighting against the regime and a deliberate attempt to force their schools to shut down. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Myra Yazardi is with CBN Persia. She's from Iran and joins us now for more. Myra, why do people believe that the regime is behind these horrible attacks?
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. You know, people know it from experience. They have lived this way for over 40 years. The Islamic regime, since its foundation in 1979, stayed in power by creating crisis and relating it to enemies, to foreign enemies, to sell this narrative to the people that if we are not in power, it's going to get even worse.
Yeah.
Another theory is driving attention away from the ongoing revolution that was going on. For example, they intensified the attacks on the schools right when the opposition leader, Prince Reza Pahlavi, was in a European tour meeting the European policymakers to advocate for people's wish to overthrow the regime, and they wanted to. There are different theories.
So, Myra, how is this turning people away from Islam? I imagine, people are outraged.
It's a theocratic regime. It's been on Sharia law, as we know, the Islamic law, that they have been reigning over people, and people started to see the real Islam, the real face of Islam that this regime actually showed them.
Are people turning more and more to Christianity because of things like this?
Yes, absolutely. As we know, Iran Underground Church is one of the most growing underground church in the world. So it is also, people are getting away from religions, but coming to Jesus more than any other.
As someone who grew up there and watching this happen in your home country, I mean, it just must be heartbreaking.
It is absolutely, it is heartbreaking. We want to do whatever we can and just raise awareness that, because the world doesn't have the true narrative of what is happening in Iran. But we want to, raise awareness to what people want, what has been going on.
And in 30 seconds, what do people want in Iran right now?
Well, they say death to the dictator, and they say regime change for Iran, and we want to amplify their voice. I know that this regime change is a little scary when it is told in the West, especially in the US, because of, in some cases it has been done incorrectly, but people want to do it through the correct way, through the right way to get the freedom and the basic human rights.
Myra, thank you so much for being with us today. Our prayers definitely with Iran and especially the young girls there.
Thank you so much.
Well, in Turkey, the need for disaster relief is ongoing and it could last for years. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground working to meet that widespread need. Brody Carter reports from Turkey.
Here in Antakya, families have been forced to leave, seeking refuge elsewhere. But for those who've stayed behind, they're relying on the generosity of others across the globe.
But the reality is these people still have no homes, many of them no jobs because their businesses collapsed. So the effect is not only just that people have lost their homes, but they now have no means to even provide for their family.
There were 4 of us in the room, my husband and I and our children. My husband died, and so did my son.
Trapped under the rubble for more than 130 hours, Turkan is alive to tell her story of survival and face the reality of loss.
I need a helper and a home. I have nothing. With no son alive to work, I have nothing. I need help. We need electricity, water, a bathroom, kitchen.
Nejla Adahan recalls running out of her home, not being able to stand, and holding her family for what she thought was the last time.
If I explain the story, I will cry. It was like the apocalypse.
Before receiving temporary housing, Nejla and her family survived in this pigeon coop, with roughly 10 others, lighting fires to keep warm. Now it serves as their washroom since their home is too dangerous to enter.
Tanrı'ya şükürler olsun ki işte hayattayız çok şükür.
Operation Blessing arrived shortly after the first earthquake hit last month. The plan is to stay for at least 6 months feeding, loving, and helping the people of Turkey any way they can.
We have our major stock is in food boxes that contain kind of your basic commodities of rice, oil, beans, flour, sugar. But we're also starting to hopefully purchase bulk items, as well as we have hygiene kits. So we're purchasing a lot of hygiene items. Our goal is never to push people upon what we believe, but rather to show them what Jesus' love looks like and wait for an opportunity to then talk beyond that.
OB coordinator Benjamin Britton knows disaster relief is often short-lived because stories often disappear quickly from the news cycle. That's why OB is here for the long haul.
The need is astronomical. I've never seen anything like it. And to think that Even us being here for 6 months will likely be one of the few at that point where we're really having an impact. But it's not just about the physical impact, but about the spiritual impact. And not only just to those who don't know Jesus, but even just being able to come alongside churches and encourage them and pray for them and show them that they have people thousands of miles away that care about them and are here to support them. That's really the global church, and that's what it's all about.
Reporting in the Republic of Turkey, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thanks, Brody. Up next, a bombshell from Beth Moore. She's opened up about her childhood abuse before, but now she's ready to name the man behind it. Welcome back. Bible teacher and best-selling author Beth Moore is known worldwide for her ministry to women. In a new memoir, she reveals her own personal trauma of childhood sexual abuse and extreme challenges in her marriage. Charlene Aaron reports.
In her latest book, All My Knotted Up Life, Beth Moore delivers a compelling self-portrait filled with unexpected twists and turns, with the final destination being God's enduring love and faithfulness. CBN News sat down with the prominent Christian leader at her Living Proof Ministry headquarters in Houston, Texas. We talked just days after the sudden loss of her brother Wayne, who, along with her other siblings, appear on the cover of her new book.
I just looked up to him and just loved him so, so much. We are reeling, but I had gotten him an advance copy of the memoir, and it has moved me so much to know that he got to see himself through my eyes in those pages.
The title, All My Knotted Up Life, parallels Moore's difficult childhood in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. Why did you feel the need to be so vulnerable and so open about?
I've always tried to be transparent in what I shared, but I just get to be a little more specific this time around.
Over the years, Moore has often talked about her childhood sexual abuse. For the first time, she reveals her father as her abuser.
I'm not sure anything impacts the life more than your protector being your perpetrator. In other words, my father was the person on earth that I could trust the least.
Growing up, this secret weighed heavily upon her.
Normally, there is a sense of threat. Like, he would not have said, you better not ever tell this. But what he did say over and over was that we had to protect my mom because she was not stable. So he used that. So there was like, I'm going to not only split up my entire family, but I'm going to cause my mother to kill herself.
Moore says her father's active participation in their local church made living with her abuse even harder.
I got to watch him just, prance up and down those aisles and teach his classes and usher, and the confusion of that. The very fact that within those walls, I believed my Sunday school teachers over what I was seeing with authority at home, to me is a testimony of God's grace.
A grace she would need in an even greater way later in life, in her constant struggle with the bad memories.
I definitely had a death wish. Definitely. It seemed to me at several points in my life, this is the only way out.
The Bible teacher also shares about challenges with her husband's mental illness, how it has shaped her marriage of 45 years.
The thing about what Keith had dealt with very severe PTSD and then bipolar, you never knew when there was going to be a sudden episode.
As Moore reflected on those dark days, she saw hope as her anchor.
I never knew what was coming when the sun came up, and neither did he. Neither did he. We had no idea what that day was going to hold. It might be wonderful. It might, before the sun set, it might be frightful. I guess the best thing that has come out of it for me and for us is that you talk about a woman casting herself on Jesus.
While crediting God for holding her family together, Moore quickly points out how therapy also helped with her healing.
Support is a necessity, be it therapists, be it a small group. whatever it is, but there is such a sense of being locked in it anyway that there has to be a way that we are able to be around others and communicate with others.
Moore has also seen her share of controversies. In 2016, she tweeted about the sexual abuse scandal involving then GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump. The backlash from churches was swift. She writes in her memoir, "Daily I received word that my Bible studies were being pulled out of more churches. Some were boxed up and sent back to us. I was told some of them were burned."
It affected me and my family profoundly. The whole face of the ministry changed dramatically.
For years, Moore's teachings had been a feature of the Southern Baptist Convention, the denomination she had been a part of her entire life. It was there that she was baptized and began her love of Scripture. In 2021, she found herself increasingly at odds with SBC leadership over issues ranging from women's roles in ministry, racial justice, and more specifically, its failure to care for sexual abuse victims.
We've been taught somehow that the right thing to do is shelter the abuser, and to the degree that we have somehow distorted such a doctrine of grace that we then are not protecting the abused.
Moore eventually decided to leave.
That was like a death that will probably take me a lifetime for whatever's left to continue to process. These are people I have and do love very much.
Beth, you have demonstrated faithfulness to God, forgiveness, perseverance through all that you've endured. How did you tap into that grace and that strength? And how challenging has it been to minister to people, even when you had personal issues going on in your life?
I can't go back and relive my life. I can't go back and make 1,000 decisions differently, which I wish I could do. I can't rewrite it. It's just what it is. But I can see to it that the grace that the Lord has poured on me is not in vain. That is my hope.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Houston.
Coming up, Corrie ten Boom saved the lives of 800 Jews and resistance workers. See how a new biography brings her daring exploits to light. Welcome back to Christian World News. Many books have been written about Corrie ten Boom and her family's courage in saving Jews from the Holocaust. The latest, The Watchmaker's Daughter, reads like an action thriller. Jenna Browder spoke with the author about Corrie's heroism and faith.
During World War II, it's estimated Corrie ten Boom saved the lives of some 800 Jews and resistance workers, many of them staying with her and her family in their watch shop and home. Their lives were on the line every day, and that's the tension and drama captured on these pages.
It's all true, but it's structured exactly like a thriller, with cliffhangers, with misdirection, with missing information.
The Watchmaker's Daughter by Larry Loftus, a nonfiction thriller that tells the story of Corrie, her family, and their remarkable resistance against the Nazis.
The Gestapo is after everybody. They're after the Jews. They're after the Dutch divers. They're after the Dutch resistance, all the people that are helping them. They're crashing down doors in the middle of the night.
Loftus, who spent days digging through the ten Boom archives at Wheaton College, includes the story of one particularly tense lunch. Jews and resistance workers all gathered around the table when someone appears at the window.
And they're like, what? And one of the resistance guys there says, okay, nobody move, but there's a guy peering through the window who's sort of cleaning the window, but he's looking through the curtains. And Betsy, Corrie's sister, says, well, I didn't order the windows cleaned. And then someone else says, there's no ledge. There's no ledge on this. How is he looking at it? There's no ledge. And the resistance guy says, he's on a ladder. And so everybody's like frozen. And so one of the key people in the story, Yussi, who is a Jew, says, okay, look, everybody just continue on like normal. In a few minutes, we're going to sing happy birthday.
Just part of everyday life, although getting caught could be a capital offense, punishable by death.
So that kind of drama, that kind of tension is throughout the story. So it could be a German military truck that parks right in front of their house one night. And they're like, everybody rushes into the hiding place. And so it's just on and on.
A young Dutchman named Hans Pulley brought the family into the resistance. He was hiding with the Ten Booms, a so-called Dutch diver. When Corrie found out he was part of the resistance, she wanted to help.
Let's use the house as the headquarters. So you feel free. Tell me what I need to do, and we'll use this as our headquarters.
So the Ten Booms hired an architect to build a hiding place behind a secret wall. When the Germans would come by to sweep the home and watch shop, that's where the Jews and Dutch divers would hide. Throughout it all, deep Christian faith served as the Ten Booms' motivation, starting with Corrie's father.
Casper, who was Corrie's father, was an absolute spiritual giant. And he was a giant because his father was Corrie's grandfather, and then the great-grandfather.
And it was their faith that led them to love the Jewish people.
He was really gentle and just loved people. And so he would see the German police arresting somebody, and Corrie's like, oh, those poor people. And Casper's like, yeah, they touched the apple of God's eye. And she's like, what? He's worried about the Germans, how messed up they are spiritually, that they're spiritually barren. And that's just him.
Loftus says Corrie's life can be summed up by the Reformation Creed. After darkness, light.
She went through absolute darkness, absolute hell, as did Casper, as did Betsy, as did Willem, as did the other people in the story. They're all in concentration camps or prisons. But she always, the whole family, they found light.
And without giving too much away, by the end of the war, there was a lot Corrie could be angry about. But instead of resentment, she chose grace. And that became another part of her incredible legacy. It's all included in the book. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thanks for watching. From all of us here at Christian World News, until next week, goodbye and God bless you.